Hi, everyone. Today I have Dave Smith with me, and we are going to get into some hockey recruiting information, which I'm very excited about. So thanks for being with us, number one. Number two, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about your background in hockey specifically, of course.
Yeah, I will. Yes. Thank you for having me. It's on take number two because, as I'll give in my bio, we've had some recent changes. But in a nutshell, grew up in a small town in Ontario, played college hockey at Ohio State, played pro, and just finished my 28th year of college coaching at the Division I level. Different places from Miami of Ohio to Bowling Green State to Mercyhurst, and then I was 12 years as the head coach at Canisius, and just finished up my 8th year at RPI and going to be moving on from there. So I'm not sure where that takes me next, but that's the history. That's the bio.
Awesome, love that. All the Canadians love their hockey, right?
Yeah, it's
lifestyle, I think.
It's what we grow up doing and watching, and a lot of pride in Canada, and especially in the small towns like my hometown of Arthur, Ontario. A lot of pride in the hockey, just the national pride that exists on the hockey front.
Yeah, and I believe with Canadian hockey and recruiting to the U.S., something with that recently changed. You want to kind of touch on that and how that opens up the playing field a little bit more?
Yeah, well, for a long time, I think back to the 70s, anybody that played what's called major junior hockey or the CHL was considered ineligible for scholarships in college hockey. And that recently changed October, November of 2024. And it exposed, about 2,000 more players that play everywhere from the West Coast in Seattle and Vancouver all the way to the East Coast in Halifax. And it's created more competition, but it's created a deeper talent pool that's available to the NCAA Division I landscape.
Yeah, love that. I think it's a great thing. I mean, always creating more competition is a mixed bag as far as like, okay, now your percentage of playing is less, but at the same time, it does create for a higher level. And I think, the depth of some teams can probably benefit from it overall. So that's, in my opinion, exciting news. But in general, what's your biggest piece of advice to hockey players from a skills perspective who are looking to get recruited?
Yeah, I mean, skills are so unique in that, we're recording this a day after Ovechkin breaks Wayne Gretzky's record. And, shooting is a skill, but not everybody can shoot the puck like Alexander Ovechkin or pass the puck like Wayne Gretzky. But you've got to be great at something. And I think the fundamentals are skating and competing. And competing is not necessarily a tangible skill that you list when skills to work on, but you can improve your competing. So for me, it starts with skating, the ability to catch and make a pass, and the ability to compete at a high level. That's the foundation. If you have IQ, now all of a sudden you go from being a B prospect to an A prospect, or a 4-star or a 3-star to a 4-star or a 5-star. So, the fundamentals of the sport, it's played on ice, on skates. So skating has to be something that young prospects are paying attention to, but compete and IQ are really critical as well.
Okay. And then what about from an academic perspective? What's your biggest piece of advice there?
I think often young people believe that they have to be at a certain level, or it's 0 or 100. And I think what happens in the junior hockey ranks and the prep school ranks is that the better student you are, the more doors it opens up, whether it be Ivy League or elite institutions that demand and command a high GPA and sometimes high test scores. But there's places that will fit you and your academic profile. I have always loved the language of it's important that you value education. And you may not have a 95 average, you might have an 85 average or a 75 average through high school. But if you value education and you are a lifelong learner, I believe admissions office in cooperation and collaboration with the athletic teams are going to look and say, you know what, we can take a chance on this guy. He or she has all these other attributes, and they value education, and they will work at it. And those are some of the greatest success stories. So do the best you can academically. Don't cut corners, and value education, because it is a lifelong skill, and something that will help you forever is just the ability to learn.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to your point, there's tons of case studies that kind of show that to be true as well. And it's a different type of learning once you get to college. You know, it's a little bit more subject matter and like what you're interested in versus high school, where you're kind of learning just a little bit more what's put in front of you. So totally agree on that front. And then for hockey specifically, what are the best ways to kind of get noticed as far as recruiting is concerned? Because you have junior hockey, you have prep school, which you mentioned, you have high school, you have clubs. So in your opinion, what do you think somebody kind of needs to do to navigate through this in a way that gives them the best opportunities to be noticed by as many coaches as possible?
The obvious one is be a great player, right? The great player has so many options, but what everybody needs is those reference checks. And a reference check isn't just somebody you list on your resume or your CV. It's the coaches that you played for, your current coaches, your previous coaches. Did this young hockey player or, aspiring prospect, were they a great teammate? Did they compete hard all the time? That's the foundation, because good and great players can come from everywhere, but those are the questions that are asked. Now, where do they go? The CHL and the USHL are at the top of the food chain in terms of where NCAA Division I is recruiting prospects from. So you've got to get into, you don't have to, but it's preferred by the scouts and the talent evaluators to get into the best leagues for your age. And it's always a race for the youngsters to say, well, I can play up a league. I can play up 2 leagues, when they're younger. But it's important to get in with your peers and be at the top of your peer group if possible. And what happens, and when we see this, when we go to regions, we say, well, this player is the best in the region. Well, we want to compare them the best in a bigger region, the best in the country, the best in North America. And we recruit from all over the world. So when you see these events, whether it be USA Hockey, all the top 15-year-olds in the US, the 16-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, and then they get selected, the pyramid of success is already built. And if you work your way along those lines and you're competing with your peers at the top level, then you will get exposed. But it's not just the top players that go, right? We're all looking for the next level of top player, right? Because whoever the top ranked school is, there's only so many players can go there. And with over 60, 64, I think the number is right now, Division I programs, we're looking for a lot of talent, and we want them to have been a top player somewhere at some point.
Yep, makes sense. And then, I feel like in general, hockey has now kind of been migrating down south a little bit, whereas traditionally it was like Canada, northern parts of the US. Now that it's migrating south, do you feel like they've done a good job in the youth realm kind of catching up to the rest of the country? Are they a little bit more behind? And maybe it's because, the Lightning have been doing so well. So now Tampa has a ton of investment into hockey. So what is that kind of looking like as far as recruiting? Is it like a slight disadvantage if you're from the South? Is it not as competitive? Or is it something that people are realizing that there's investment being put into it and they're more open to it? Or how is that kind of being viewed right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you look at Austin Matthews, who's from Phoenix, Arizona. You look at, Gavin Brindley, who's from Florida. What's the connection to them? And, playing in the National Hockey League is that they develop their skills. And what happens at the younger age, and I think there's a gap in this, but at the younger ages, the top players are able to play in a league and at the AAA level and fly around the country, whether you're based out of Dallas, you're based out of Fort Myers, Florida, you're based out of, Phoenix, Arizona, wherever you're based out of. And it can get expensive, and that hurts some prospects. But I believe that if there's talent, there's usually a way to get those youngsters onto a team. So at the youth level, the ability to play against other top teams and other top players is there. As they move up through junior hockey, the North American Hockey League has teams throughout Texas and throughout the Midwest, all the way up to Alaska and the East Coast. So the junior hockey is there. College hockey itself lags behind in the south of Florida, Georgia, Texas,
Right.
but I do believe those are coming. And I think it's you didn't ask this, but the smooth transition is there's a college hockey program for everybody. And
Yep.
Arizona State's in Tucson, and they've got a Division I team. But USC and Stanford and UCLA, they have terrific club programs out in California. And they talk about Washington and Oregon, that if you get to a school, sometimes it's club hockey, sometimes it's intramurals, that there is a pathway through hockey for success at many of these schools. And that now is generating a lot of conversation in the East, whether that be at Georgia, at Florida Gulf Coast. Which one of these teams is going to step up and mirror Penn State, Arizona State, and grab a Division I team? But to get back to your question, I think that as a young hockey prospect, there's a lot of avenues to showcase your skills and play against other top talent.
Yeah. And then to your point, it's interesting because I feel like college hockey in general is a little bit different from most sports in the sense that you do see AAU college hockey and then ACHA kind of popping up more and more and kind of getting into some of those southern schools, whereas a lot of other sports don't necessarily have even some sort of competitive club to the extent that hockey does. So to your point, yes, there's a fit for everybody and it's growing, which is great to see. But I think exposing those potential opportunities to people is also important, because it might be a situation where it's like, I really want to go to the school, but maybe the program's ACHA or AAU and it's not necessarily NCAA, which is fine. It's just everybody's process is a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we hear from young coaches that they say, well, I only played ACHA. And I'm like, well, you played hockey at a level higher than junior hockey. You showed commitment. You showed these life skills that translate into coaching and the rest of your world. And there's been some terrific coaches and professional people that have played club hockey or even played intramurals. But if your passion and you're good at hockey, but maybe not good enough for Division I or Division III, go play and make a difference and be the president of your club hockey team and help make others better. I think it's a no-brainer for me to use hockey as a vehicle for your individual success.
Yep, totally agreed. And then, when it comes to recruiting process, things have obviously gotten pushed back since, 10, even 5 years ago, as far as like when athletes can reach out. If there are athletes that are kind of reaching out and emailing you sooner before you can technically respond, is that something that you kind of take mental note of? Is that something that you file away if they're consistent and, let's say they start emailing at a young age and then by the time they're juniors, you're recognizing their name? Is that something you advise? Is that something that you take note of as a coach? And I guess talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to generate that interest. And the easiest and first way is just to be great amongst your peers at the top level. And you most likely will get noticed, and not always, but most likely by the scouts or the people that communicate. So there's a network from the professional levels all the way down through college, down through the junior levels and the youth coaches at the AAA levels. And we all have these connections in the area. So being a great person and being a great hardworking player, those things can happen in your region. So if you aren't getting noticed and you're moving up into that 16U age bracket for hockey, that's about the time. In Ontario, they have a 15-year-old draft or a 16-year-old draft, and out west it's a 14 or a 15-year-old draft. So that helps identify those players. And there's a number. Hey, I got drafted in the second round or the fifth round. But if you want to generate a little interest, I would also advise be careful when you start sending things, because if you're not ready and you send me a message that says, hey, come watch me, here's my schedule, here's my coach's contacts, and we actually go and watch those games, or you're in a tournament that we're scouting and you're not playing well, and I don't just mean playing well on a day or a weekend, maybe you're just getting used to a level that you've moved up, be ready for that challenge. So if you're going to send something out and our staff or anybody's staff is going to go watch you. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready to compete and be noticed as one of the elite people and elite players on the team. So how do they do that? You can always message, and my advice is short and sweet. Make sure I have your schedule. Make sure I have your contact information. Make sure you're following NCAA rules. If you don't know them, we would guide them through the process. Hey, they might get a response that says, we can't contact you until January 1st of your grade 10 year. That's the hockey rule. We can't, make any offers until August 1st. And, begin the dialogue. Begin the dialogue that just like any relationship, you're not doing it every day. You're not doing it every week, but you're staying consistent with touch points at the right point, with the right timing. If you do that and you're a good player, you're now on the radar. Now you have to be ready for the next phase, which is, are your academics in order? Are your finances in order? And having those questions and conversations with family and advisors is very important. So get on the radar. Make sure you have the basic information that gets to the coaches via email. Not all of them respond. Many do. But engage in that relationship building with these coaches.
And then my next question, transition a little bit, but how do you see NIL impacting college hockey? I mean, obviously it's really impacting football the most. It kind of is impacting sports at different rates, I would say, but how do you see it impacting college hockey right now specifically?
Well, it came at a really interesting time with the CHL getting opened up. They were considered professionals before, not anymore. So I think I would start and say, don't expect name, image, and likeness contracts. Don't expect extra dollars in your pocket. Make your choices based on hockey and people and education first. If you're at the level that NIL money and opportunities come your way, now you can add that into the mix of, can I make a few extra $1,000? Can I make a lot of extra thousands of dollars? And I think it's really between that and the transfer portal, it's really muddying the waters a lot. That some players feel that they should be getting NIL and they're not, and so they might go in the portal and they might lose an opportunity where they were. And I think prospects and players have to be very, very careful about understanding their own market value, and at the same time creating an academic and athletic experience that fits what their life goals are.
Yeah, I was actually going to lead into a question of transfer portal. So transfer portal obviously has been in the news a ton recently. Whether or not they make some changes to it, we never know. So, how is that kind of impacting recruiting in general? What we've kind of reported on is it is creating less opportunities for high school athletes to kind of come in because coaches are pulling from, maybe people who are transferring or even just, looking to do a grad year somewhere or what have you. But how do you see transfer portal kind of impacting hockey right now as well?
Well, it's messy. It's really messy in that you have, you have this whole mix of people that are trying to influence a prospect, say, well, you can get more, you can do more, you can have a different experience. So I think what it's done is it's shortened the relationships in that a verbal commitment for some programs is 100% solid, and other programs it's not as solid. And so then a signed commitment, there's still ways that advisors, agents are trying to get out of signed commitments.
Right.
And then when we're building our program as a coach, it's really challenging because at the end of every season, it's a free agent market where players can go in. My advice to my players and to our players over the years has been make sure you understand the market. And once you go into that transfer portal, it doesn't mean that you're having a different experience. It just means it might be in a new place. So be very aware of what experience you want. So I do think that prospects it gives them the power to try something different, to look around and say, I want something different. But there's many prospects that are having the experience of other people suggesting they leave, other people suggesting that this
Right.
might be better, and they're getting into wrong situations, and in some cases leaving the Division I level and a scholarship and then not getting anything else. So the awareness of where they fit, what they're looking for, to me, it really starts on the entire front end. And unless there's a coaching change, they should be doing as much homework as they can and planning on a 4-year experience and trying to work through adversity, show their grit and determination. And the transfer portal gives you an opportunity that if you're aware that, hey, I've done everything I can, I've tried everything, and it's time for a change, it allows that athlete to change.
Okay. And then I'm going to kind of lead into a different question more about specifically like coaching. And when, as a head coach, you know, what are some qualities and characteristics that you kind of look for in hiring staff as far as assistant coaches and, you know, working with people who you trust and everything else? But I guess talk to me a little bit about like what you like kind of look for in that role and any advice that you give to people looking to go into the coaching realm.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think every coach talked about it. It's loyalty, to the staff, to the head coach, to the program, and that is not something that you can answer in an interview. You can give an answer, but that gets tested on the road. That gets tested late at night. And loyalty to our messaging when we're in a coach's room and we talk good and bad about a player. When we leave that coach's office, it's a unified front. And we are one voice when we leave there. It might come through 4 or 5 different channels, but that loyalty is really, really important. I think the other key things are trust. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. I am going to contact these group of kids. I'm going to, go on the ice. I'm going to take care of this piece of business so that a head coach can trust you to accomplish whatever it is that you say as a staff that you're going to divvy up the responsibilities. And then after that, I think there's personality in there, the ability to connect with different people, the ability to be vulnerable and put yourself out there to the student athletes. We are not perfect. We might be coaches. And I think as a youngster, you think your coach knows everything, but we don't, and all coaches don't. So being vulnerable and at the same time confident in and having a belief in what you're trying to teach and show. So there's a lot of great skills, a lot of great coaches out there that are doing these things. But when you're building a staff, and when I've been building a staff, we try to get a mix of personalities, a mix of area specific, like position specific skills. It might be a defenseman, might be a goalie, might be a forward. So be great at something, but have the ability to connect with people is probably the number one people skill I would recommend.
Okay, awesome. That's great. And then what kind of, I think my last couple of questions here, but number one is best and worst things that parents can do for athletes throughout the recruiting process. We'll start with the best and then we can go to the worst.
Well, I think the best thing is easy, is support and embrace the journey that is your son or daughter. It's their journey. And I like the examples that as their youth prospects, and they come up, their parents are driving them to the event. The parents are in behind the wheel. As they get older, the prospect, the young hockey player, he's the guy or girl behind the wheel. And the parents need to sit in the back and they need to be passengers. And the best parents understand that they still have a voice. And it, in the driving analogy, it might be, hey, take a left turn up here, take a right turn up here, speed up a little bit, slow down a little bit, but it's still the driver, or in this case, the hockey prospect's decision whether or not they act on that. It ties into some of the things I wish parents would do differently. Is they reach 16, the young hockey player reaches 16, and the family say, well, he's 16 now, so it's all their choice. I'm just listening to them. And I believe that young hockey player, that young athlete benefits from having that parental conversation and confidence. So staying involved properly, and letting them steer the journey is the most important thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you said that beautifully. So I totally agree. And you kind of, I think, answered both parts of that with that answer. So that was great. And then I guess in general, we'd love to know a little bit like what's next for you.
Yeah, I love hockey. I played 4 years at college. I played 6 years at pro, and I've been coaching for 28 years. So when you put all that together, I think it's 38 years being involved at a high level, not even, a level above junior hockey. So I believe I have a lot of transferable skills into the game, and a lot of energy left to give to prospects. So right now, and these are family decisions for us. My wife is a college teacher as well, and she's got a PhD in philosophy. So we make these decisions together, but we want to stay involved in the game of hockey. It's been really good for us. We've made terrific friends and had terrific experiences. And whether that's in college still, or we venture into pro, whether that be North American pro or European pro, right now, and it's been very fresh as and in terms of timing. But the plan is to stay involved in the game in any way possible, and make do on some of these connections that have been really 30, 40 years, and say, hey, let's see what we can do together.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. This was amazing once again. So we appreciate it, and best of luck, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you. I really I enjoy what you're doing. I think it's a great resource for many, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Of course.